What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to Around the Burgh. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here to recap the Steelers' 27-17 loss to the Green Bay Packers in Week 4. I'm here with my co-host, Shane Kubis. Shane, how you doing tonight?
Oh, just great. I feel just as young and spry as Ben Roethlisberger, so I'm feeling great.
Down that bad, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was another tough game. For me, exacerbated by the fact that I
yeah,
couldn't watch the first quarter because we had to wrap up the longest overtime I've ever seen with the Jets and Titans and just some absolutely god awful football.
the game would not
Um,
die.
and of course, I had missed arguably like probably the best part of the game in which Ben threw his 400th touchdown pass, and it was actually a deep throw, and pretty much after that, it seemed like it was all downhill.
Yeah, that first drive where got the offsides call and Ben caught him there, stepped up, and I mean he threw the best ball he's thrown all year. Personally, just from what I've seen, like right over top Alexander Johnson did a great job getting open down the field just enough to be able to hit him in stride, and it was really like in that moment, I'm like, okay. I think I even tweeted like this game could be more fun than expected. And then
Hmm.
immediately after that, nothing.
Narrator
Just
voice. It was not.
right, absolutely nothing from that
Yeah.
point forward for a while. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So I think though the theme of this game is that this was a game of inches. Like if just a few things go a little differently, like Marvel's doing their what if series right
yeah.
now, which I've been enjoying a lot, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of what ifs you could go with this game that would change the outcome in a big way. So the first, I'll stick with Ben. He has a few of those deep shots to Juju that he missed, but they were pretty close. He has to hit them, but he missed them, and that really
Hmm.
killed the offense on multiple drives. You have the defense. I thought that most of the time they were in pretty good position, especially against the run. They were just like a hair away from making a good tackle, or there was the Mink interception that was dropped, just like a little execution thing. And then, of course, the big offsides quote penalty on the field goal attempt at the end of the first half.
Yeah, and I completely agree because there, like you said, there's so many little moments here and there where like you could just tell this team is off in
Hmm.
like in every way. Like there's just a little bit, like you said, whether it's a step too slow, a throw too wide, whatever it is, you could tell the team is not in sync with themselves right now.
Hmm.
And like even the coverage was decently good most of the time. I mean,
Hmm.
even that the big Randall Cobb touchdown, he had the longer one, or I think it ended up being a touchdown. I forget if they had to punch it in, where I think Edmonds missed him by half a step. Like he
Hmm.
just beat him
Yep.
just barely, and just stuff like that. Like there was so many times where you could say, okay, that play doesn't happen. Maybe the Steelers are in this game at the end,
Hmm.
especially the the blocked field goal that should have been a touchdown. We all
Yeah.
know that. We've seen all the angles and like clearly they just happened to perfectly time it up. And I think the refs literally just said that can't be right and
Yeah.
just
It was too perfect. Literally just too perfect.
and like I understand. I mean, I understand from a certain to a certain extent. Like if you're a ref and you see that, like it didn't look normal, right? Like it didn't
Hmm.
look like a normal blocked kick, but it just sucks to have a great play be taken away simply because it was literally so perfect that I just
Yeah, and
couldn't tell.
you have it go through your mind. It's like, oh, I wish they could review penalties, but that would
Yeah,
slow the game down further.
yeah,
And
that would be worse. Yeah,
it's just like, oh, come on, like this is so clearly overturnable. But that it is how it is. So like we said, game of inches, but that's generally how football is. But there were so many concrete examples this week that it really stings. But I think this thing that is stinging the most for Steelers fans is that I think this was the game where I hope that a good amount more people have come around to the side where it is probably, if it isn't right now, we're approaching it rapidly. Is it time to bench Ben?
yeah, and even myself, like last week after last week's performance against the Bengals, I was ready to hear that argument, right? Because it didn't seem like even if things were to go well with the rest of the offense, like receivers were getting open and the line was blocking, it felt like even in that situation, it wouldn't be enough for Ben to play well. And we saw this week, Juju was open several times. Johnson was open, especially for the touchdown, and then other plays. He made some weird errors that we'll talk about later. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself while I was
There you
taking
go.
a drink of water.
No.
But Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that Deontay thing later because that was a
Yeah,
really weird sequence of plays. But keep going on
yeah,
Ben.
but in general, like everything kind of seemed to click a little bit on the
Yeah,
offensive line. He wasn't pressured much at all. I think the number was
yeah,
like 7% of
yeah. Say,
dropbacks. Like
yeah, I think it was only
he
like pressured 5 times, 7%
something
dropbacks. Yeah,
something like that. And like even the couple times he was pressured, he had the fumble on
yeah,
the back. And like granted, he was kind of in the motion, like getting ready to throw, and like
yeah,
that happens. But everything kind of started to get going a little bit from everyone else, and he still couldn't make the plays that were there. And
yeah,
that's what concerns me. And that's where the benching conversation comes into play, because if he's not going to make the easy plays, and he's not going to make reads and get the ball to where it needs to be, he doesn't bring anything positive to the offense.
hmm
The 39-year-old quarterback is supposed to be the veteran guy that's able to make the plays that are there, and get guys in the right place. And if he's not going to do that, I mean, Mason, as much as we don't, love him by any means around the Burgh here,
hmm
he could do that. I mean, he at least can make those throws, and he's going to be a little bit more mobile. At least he's going to be a little bit more willing to stand in there and throw down the field. So that question has to be asked, and I'm sure it's going to be asked a lot, especially if Ben continues to play like he has.
Yeah, like you mentioned it before the show, and then we were just talking about in general. Like this isn't really a Drew Brees situation where the
Right.
arm is just gone. Like he there was the big touchdown. He's still able, and he missed those shots to Juju, but he's had some deep passes this season. So the ball can get down the field, and it can be thrown with a decent amount of velocity. Like we saw, they finally hit a deep play over the middle to James
Yeah, to
Washington,
Washington. Yeah.
which was a really nice play. He hit like on all of those blaze outs on those RPOs to Deontay that he loves to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's worse that it's the mental side that is lacking. Like, I mean, the biggest play is obviously on that first third and I want to say 4. It was pretty short, I think, or
Was it
fourth
the
and 4,
4th and 4?
fourth and
Yeah.
4. And I think I saw it was Justice Mosqueda, who's a great follow on Twitter. He works
Hmm.
for Acme Packing Company. He's a great person who like covers the Packers and covers football in general. But
Yeah.
he, had like the all 22 angle of it, and basically it showed that this is a classic Ben thing. Like he thought it was man coverage again, which is shocking, and he made the decision before the snap even came. He's like, okay, I'm throwing this to the flat because I think they're bringing pressure and it's man. And it wasn't that, and it was zone. And I saw this on the broadcast that Fryermuth was standing beyond like a yard beyond the sticks
Yeah.
without a defender within 5 yards of him. And if Ben just takes that second and actually goes through it just one more read, he can find Fryermuth for a first down. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm tending to agree with you that I think it might be approaching that point. I think Mason, even though he does come from like an air raid background, I think he's more comfortable at this stage, playing under center, executing play action. So like he might, just from a willingness to actually run the offense standpoint and go through his reads, like he might be able to actually execute this offense more efficiently. But I think it is still tough to bench, this franchise quarterback who's been a legend for the franchise.
And that's the part, like, I think that's ultimately what's going to buy him either the whole season or more time. Is Tomlin doesn't want to have to bench Ben. Ben
Yeah,
obviously doesn't want to not play. Obviously, we
yeah,
know that he wouldn't be back if he didn't want to play. And at some point, to me, like, you have to either commit to understanding that, okay, this is a lost season, right? Because realistically, we're 4 games in. I know it's really early. This offense cannot win football games unless the defense
no,
puts up monstrous efforts. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's some winnable games coming up, like the Bears, depending on how they look with whatever quarterback they're playing, and the Lions, obviously. But outside of them, like, there's really not that many games left on the schedule that I look at and go, yeah, I think we have a better than not chance to win that game, just from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't really know what they're gonna do. I mean, Denver's coming to town this week. They've got a good defense. Their offense
mhm,
could be missing Teddy Bridgewater. So Drew Lock, who's the guy we talked about last week, could be
right,
starting for them. So we'll have to see what happens there. But for the rest of the offense, I thought it was a pretty good day at the office. Like
yeah,
you said, like the blocking was good. Ben didn't get pressured very much. They blocked well in the run game. Najee finally averaged over 4 yards a carry
yeah,
and
he did.
looked really good. He got
Hmm.
his first rushing touchdown, which was great. And I thought the receivers did a pretty good job of getting open. I mean, this offense really runs through Deontay Johnson, his ability to quickly separate. Juju got targeted a ton, and a lot of those passes weren't accurate, so
No, not at all.
he wasn't able to bring them in. James Washington had some nice plays. I think I'm still just confused with some of the players that are getting playing time on this
Yeah,
offense. They're like,
yeah, I know.
why are Zach Gentry and Benny Snell earning snaps. I
It
don't understand.
every time I see Snell come out on the field, I'm like, what is he like? I just want to say, like, we obviously don't have anything against Benny Snell personally, right?
No, he seems like a
But
great guy.
yeah,
Like I loved
he's a
his story
great
coming
guy.
out and everything.
But there's no way you can tell me that coaching staff is in practice every day and saying, you know what, Benny, you deserve snaps over Kalen Balaj,
Yeah.
or like it just real. I sometimes I'm sort of joking about this, but sometimes I'm like, I'd rather have Derek Watt back there and have him run the
I
ball.
yes, I
Like,
said that exact thing.
yeah, and I'm like it, and it's just because he just doesn't bring anything to the position. He doesn't. He's not fast. Obviously, he was supposed to be a power runner. He really doesn't even break tackles well at all. He doesn't have any
No.
shiftiness to his game. He's not a like he doesn't do anything that justifies either taking Harris off the field other than just to give him an actual break for once,
Yeah.
or getting snaps over Balaj. Like obviously, if McFarland's healthy, hopefully soon. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what his status is. Hopefully, he gets that number 2 role and actually maybe get some snaps to kind of keep Harris a little fresher, so we don't run him into the
Yeah.
ground so soon. But he can't be on the field. Like it's just
Yeah,
there's
no, I think his two like snaps where he was like actually involved was he had a 1 yard, he had a one carry for 0 yards,
right.
and he dropped a pass on like a check down,
Yeah,
which I think
that's
he might have ran the wrong way. So it's just like I just don't get, and like Zach Gentry, like he seems like a decent blocker, but like I just don't understand why isn't Fryermuth out there? Even Ebron, like I just don't get
yeah.
it.
I mean, at least with Ebron, like Gentry is never going to be a great receiver, and he's a better blocker than he was. Like he does bring a little bit
Yeah.
to the game from that perspective. Like if you're doing 3 tight end looks or something, fine, whatever.
No, but
Obviously, he's
this was
got
out of like 11 personnel. It
exactly.
was
Well, that's what I'm
insane.
saying. Is like if you're going to use him as a third tight end, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
he doesn't need to be on the field if he's the only tight end on the field.
And like
like,
if you are coming out in 11 personnel and he's your tight end, I mean I mean I guess this is the gamesmanship of it, but like the defense is gonna be like, okay, they're running,
yeah, because
and
what other
maybe there's an
reason?
RPO off it, but I just don't. It felt like they were always running with him on the field. And I was just like, what is the point of this? Like just like Fryermuth is a decent enough blocker, just put him out there
Yeah,
and like get him some reps at least.
yeah, at least then he's playing, and it gives you a threat out
Yeah,
there. Like, and then Ebron even too. Like, at least if Ebron catches the ball, he's a threat. Like, at least he can get down the field a little bit. But
right. But
I don't know.
let's get as we're wrapping up on the offense. Let's get back to that series of plays where Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna have trouble remembering exactly what happened, but there were at least 2 plays where he basically ran backwards away from
hmm
getting the first down. Um, I'm trying to think of the other ones that happened, but
So he had a false start
yes,
right after one. So
hmm
he had the opportunity to try to dive and get a first down. He
yeah,
basically was at the line to
hmm
gain, and then tried to backtrack and ended up
yes,
basically gaining 0 yards.
yeah, yeah,
And like I know that his whole game is like the shiftiness to try to find different angles to attack the defense, get around guys. But if it's a third down, Deontay, just get the first down.
yeah,
This offense needs conversions. Like I don't
hmm
if you can get a 20-yard play, that's awesome. But we don't need 20 yards on third and
yeah,
four. That's what I think that the one knock that you could say on Johnson this year, because he's caught the ball really well.
hmm
He hasn't had those issues this year so far. He still just tries to do too much with the football sometimes. And
yeah.
guys like him that can do the stuff he can do, it's hard to kind of coach that out of them or understand like game situation. Like don't do more than you have to, but he has to get to that point if we're going to target him so much on third downs.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there are times where he just, and I think this kind of happened last year where I don't know, he just like his brain just shuts off
It
and like
seems like it.
he
Yeah.
just
I
doesn't
mean,
like make the right decisions, and he's just like I don't know if he's possessed or something, but just something else takes over where he's just not there and just does these dumb things like.
yeah.
And I can't remember the other, but there was another play like after that where he did something really questionable. I was like, what is going on? And it was like 3 plays in a row, and then it was pretty much
Yeah.
the end of the game, so it didn't really end up mattering. But I was just like, I don't understand what's going on with him right now.
Just a lot of weird stuff. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll flip over to the defense now, and I mean, I really don't have much fault to find with the defense, to be honest.
They played fine. Like I think that they played well enough that we could have won this game,
Yeah.
right? Like that and whenever you're playing the Packers, I know that they had the dud week 1, but they've been great on offense
Hmm.
the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's more like what this team actually is. They gave them a chance to win. They didn't get bulldozed. They had a couple drives, obviously, where there's those 5 drives where they had the scores in a row, but like they weren't these dominant, like unbelievable drives. They made enough plays and they did well enough that if this offense was actually able to take advantage of the things that they could have taken advantage of, it would have been a game at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think holding the Packers to 27 points is not terrible. I think that nobody can say that they quit. in this
Right.
game. I think they were absolutely trying their hardest to the very end. They got that fumble in the middle of the second half, which obviously the Steelers offense didn't do anything with, but
Yeah.
they were still out there giving it their all throughout the entire game. And, I think that obviously, I think missing Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt is really hurting the run defense.
It is. Yeah.
We mentioned how the Packers offense is still very good at running the ball, but they were able to pretty much gain yards at will on the ground. I think the Steelers defense has done a pretty good job throughout the season of identifying an offense's top target and limiting them, if not completely taking them away. So like Devontae Adams had a big first quarter, and that was basically it. But obviously, then the other weapons are open and they can beat you, and that's Randall Cobb.
Yeah, Randall Cobb especially. I mean, he had his homecoming game essentially.
Yeah.
The Packers with him being back, which I mean, I'm not that surprised. Again, somebody's gonna have to make plays whenever Devontae is out, and it was the running backs, like you said, and then it was Cobb getting open on those short routes and then taking them distance. Basically, a lot of it was just run after catch with him. So
yeah, and it seemed like they had Sutton on Adams and then doubled him over the top. So pat on the back to me for saying that's what they were going to do.
Exactly.
And yeah, actually, I thought it worked out pretty well. But TJ Watt was also back, and he was able to make some plays. I think he had actually had like 2 sacks, but one of them Rodgers just like slid. So
he
they're
totally
garbage sacks.
He totally tripped him. Just so we all know,
I don't
care that he did it, but like it's just funny to me because like it looks so like I don't know how obvious he actually was trying to do it. It may have been incidental in some way, but it looked like if it wasn't on purpose, it looked as on purpose as he could have made it. And I just think it's hilarious. Like they didn't give us the touchdown.
Yeah, so I don't care.
I just think it's funny because like everyone's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, but I don't care.
Justice Mosqueda, the guy I mentioned, I think he tweeted like, there could have been there should have been a 10-point swing earlier, so I'll take the karma here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously, like that play didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So who cares? But
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I think he's kind of rounding into shape. Highsmith had a pretty decent game. I thought they did a pretty good job of getting pressure on Rodgers, but the problem is that he's probably one of the best, if not the, at being able to play within the pocket while the pocket is collapsing.
That's the problem, right? Is like I've thought about that going into the game, and I'm like, I really think they'll be able to pressure him. I'm like, does it matter? Like, and you have to actually sack him. It doesn't matter. Like, pressures are so important against the majority of NFL quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, I'm a big proponent of like I want a guy who's going to get me 80 pressures and 8 sacks, opposed to 12 sacks and 30 pressures, right? Like, a lot of people have talked about this as like oh, well, sacks, how much does it matter? Against Aaron Rodgers, they might matter more than any other quarterback because you have to get him on the ground because otherwise it might not matter that you pressured him at all. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, there's not a lot I'm gonna be angry about with the defense. I thought they played a good game. We'll talk about special teams. Obviously, we talked about the offsides thing at length. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't really know what you're doing. I mean, I guess Facebook and Instagram have been down, so maybe your source of highlights isn't available, but you can find it somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah. Presley Harvin shanked a punt pretty bad. That wasn't good.
Yeah, so that play was weird because like it seemed like he thought he was going to get hit or something.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it sucks because like I guess if he tried to sell it and we got the penalty, that'd be great, right? But what you risk then is a shanked punt.
Yeah.
And I think outside of that shank, and then I forget if it was week 1 or 2 where he had the other major one, like he's been all right. I think he'll get better over time. He'll have plenty of practice probably, unfortunately. Which we don't want to talk too much about, but
right. And then Boswell doinked home a 52-yarder, which was cool. He's the GOAT.
Chris is great. Like we've talked about it, I think a couple of times before, but what a great decision it was to not bail on him after 18 season was it?
Yeah. There was actually I think there was a tweet from Trey Essex, if you remember that name.
Oh yeah.
He said like he said he had some tweet about that. Like honestly, like that tells you a ton about like why the Steelers are so successful because they didn't just give up on this guy after one bad year. They're like, okay, like, we believe in you. You'll get it right. And, we'll get it figured out. And that's really rewarded the Steelers in the last 2 seasons since that down year.
Yeah, he's been great. What's funny is I distinctly remember Boswell struggling, and my father, who loved Sean Sweezum, thought he was awesome. He called him Sushi all the time. He was like, "Where's Sweezum at?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure he's retired." And he's like, Well, get him. I'm
Get him
like, all
back.
right.
That's the
Like,
thing about kickers.
makes
You can pretty much get them back for a long time.
yeah, for most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
And then I thought
glad to
this
see
was
us
a
again.
really good Ray McLeod game for all it's worth. I thought he had a lot of
Yeah,
nice returns to
honestly,
get, set the offense up in decent field position to ultimately do nothing. But
right.
it's nice to have a
He's doing
decent
what he
return
can,
guy.
right? Like
Huh?
he's playing his part. He's doing what he can.
Right.
So
Um, yeah, so I mean that pretty much covers it. It's another loss. We were right this week though. So
that's true.
we got our first win as predictors.
Yeah, I mean, we
I think
did
you were
do
pretty
that.
close in the score. I don't think I wrote it down
I think
sadly,
I
but you
was 27. I think I said 27 to 13.
10. It was
To
10 to 13, yeah. So
yeah.
you were really close.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, for all
Great,
it's worth.
yeah.
Um,
Oh.
yeah. So I think that'll do it for us because there's just not that much we can really talk about. It's pretty frustrating at this point, and there's not, like we said last week, the team is pretty much stuck. There's not much they can do to remedy the situation, and all the options are pretty bad.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna probably have to spend, especially as we get deeper into the college season. I think we'll start talking a little bit more about who we might be looking to target and like what positions, just because that might be where this is going. We might be starting to look more to the future, unfortunately, depending on how these next few weeks go. So,
Yeah, well, I'm always excited to talk draft, but
oh
that'll
yeah,
do
for
it.
sure.
Yeah, that'll do it for us for this episode. Shane, where can the people find your work?
We can find me live tweeting my sadness at
Mm,
Shane Kubis on Twitter, and writing articles that also just are mostly sad for the Steel Curtain and also
yep.
for Around the Block. So,
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, and make sure you're following Steelers ATB on Twitter.
mhm.
We really appreciate you listening and tuning in again, and we hope to see you back for the next episode.